What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker here on Unique Access, and today we have the privilege and honor of being joined by Lonzo, world-class wrecking crew, West Coast hip-hop architect. Thank you for coming through, sir.
Thank you, Doc. How you feeling today, man?
Man, thank you, and want to shout out Stand the Guitar Man for putting us back in touch and making sure we made this interview happen. And for those that don't know, Lonzo has a great book out. Make sure you pick that up. It's on Amazon. You can get it worldwide. N.W.A, Not Without Lonzo. So, Alonzo, this book has a lot of great history. I recommend everybody buy it. And one of the things that I thought was very interesting about it was you have so much history in here, but kind of a contrasting thing was when you talked about how when Run-DMC came out to Los Angeles, their clothing and attire was so different from what you guys were wearing.
Right, right.
So why was that so jarring to you?
Well, because back in that day, man, the musical vibe, clothing-wise, on the West Coast, we were all in skinny ties and baggy pants, and and when Run-DMC got out to play, they looked like bikers. They came out, they had their leather on, their tennis shoes wasn't laced up. We never we never did anything like that. No lace, laces in our shoes, and it was just a culture shock, man. It's like, hey, man, okay, cool, all right. Plus, it might have been the time of year. It was hot for us, but it might have been cold. It might have been in January or something like that, where it was cold back east, but it was hot as hell in California. So they were definitely somewhat uncomfortable.
Well, there it is. And then also, you had told me before about how your guys' outfits later caught a lot of flack, but that you were actually inspired by Afrika Bambaataa, the Soul Sonic Force.
I mean, when we started doing our thing in the 80s, man, we only had a few people to reference. Afrika Bambaataa, Melly Mel, and the Furious Five. And we're from the West Coast, but we ain't cowboys. We couldn't do the feathers, okay? We wasn't doing no feathers and no super space stuff, so we settled on the sequence and bit a little the Prince move with the eyeliner. And because we were on tour, we were playing with groups like Ready for the World,
right.
Mary Jane Girls, Barcade. So we were we started off as a opening act for funk groups. There was very few hip hop acts on the shows we were doing, and we had to come with some kind of costumes, and that was the route we chose. So, kind of in between the Morris Day Prince / Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, minus the feathers.
And Yella, you had talked about, was really into Prince.
He was always into Prince. He pissed me off with that one, man, because he had the little lace glove, and sometimes he'd get on stage and do that little Prince move with the finger in the mouth. Man, get your goddamn finger out your mouth.
And what did being from the West Coast, Prince obviously from Minneapolis, and being super established at that time, what was kind of the reaction that Yella in particular would get? Like, did people love it? Did they think he was biting Prince? Like, what was it?
At that time, there was no real competition, and when he did that kind of stuff, it was automatically related back to Prince.
Okay.
And there was no hip hop counterpart, so there was no resistance. It was accepted. Okay. He was light-skinned guy. Yella was the shortest one. Well, Cli-N-Tel actually was the shortest one. But by the time we hit the road heavily, Shakespeare came. Cli-N-Tel was gone. Shakespeare came on, so Yella was the shortest one. He had the purple suit. He was a light-skinned kid, and he went into that Prince thing to the best of his ability, and it worked for him until he got to N.W.A. We're gonna talk about that though.
But the other funny thing was with the outfits and even the sound. Like, how would you say your sound was directly influenced by?
Definitely. It was definitely influenced by Afrika Bambaataa, Kraftwerk, with the arpeggiators on Juice. We were theme-based. That's why we had so many songs about Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre's, his doctor theme worked in so many ways for us, with Surgery, House Calls, He's Bionic, and a couple other songs we had that worked out for us. In fact, the whole plan was for everybody to get a song made about them.
Right.
That was the original plan. Yella had World Class was about Yella on the DMX. That was the drum machine of our choice at that time. And unfortunately, we never got around to Lonzo song. So we broke up before we got to Lonzo song.
So it's interesting because given a lot of the stuff that we later had with the East Coast, West Coast beef, you talk a lot about in your book that when the East Coast artists would come, like Davy DMX taught Yella about scratching and how to do it, and LL, of course, on Bigger and Deffer worked with DJ Pooh and Bobcat and the LA Posse.
Right.
So what did you notice early in the game, and that's all way before America's Most Wanted by Cube, so which is famous for the East Coast West Coast collaboration. But for you, what did you notice through your clubs and your different work? What was the attitude and the demeanor of teaching you guys?
It was
things?
we were a bunch of young kids just glad to start doing what we were doing. They were surprised to see that the club owner was so young. First of all, I mean, I'm the club owner, and everybody's around the same age, and we all doing things. Nobody knew nothing. I remember when we first, I first brought Run-DMC out, me and Jam Master Jay was kicking it. I'm trying to pick his brain about the record industry, and he don't know nothing. Okay, I don't know how to do that. I don't know about that right there. So we ended up going to the liquor store and getting a 40 ounce and kicking it in the office, and there was not much to learn because he didn't know a whole lot back then. But when I brought Curtis Blow out first,
okay,
and that's when Davy D hooked up his turntables and showed Yella how to scratch. Cause we were still using a knob fader, the old realistic turntables.
I got you.
With the
you didn't have the Technique 1200s.
We never had the need for them. I mean, we was pretty good blenders, even with the rubber pads. It was a different time back then. Scratching was we had just heard it on AJ Scratch and a couple other records. Didn't know how they did it. That's how we asked him, how do you make that sound? Okay.
It's funny you say that, because when I first fell in love with rap, it was 85, and my friend had made me this tape, and it had all the scratching on it. So, it was like Roxanne was on there, I Need a Beat, just a lot of songs that had different scratching, and I had no idea how it was being created, what it was being done, how they were bringing the other voices in and stuff. So it's kind of funny that.
Yeah, so we was, man, how do y'all do that? And this is how we do it.
Right.
Oh, damn. Now I got to go spend $700 for a pair of turntables.
And I think it's funny, too, because the level of learning was so different, but then also the equipment. And I think people now, thanks to technology, it's so easy to record, it's so easy to mimic these different sounds.
Right.
But back then, I think it's important to explain, like, the process.
It was, the whole recording process was totally different back then. I mean, you had to invest money into it. It wasn't something you can do just by buying an SD card and a computer. I tell people all the time, if you didn't have $1,500 to spend, to throw away, because sometimes you didn't get your money back,
right.
Nobody was going to the studio. And with the technology being what it is today, it makes it much more accessible for artists. But back then, you had to have somebody that believed in you. And I was always taught to rehearse at home. So I built studios at home. I built demo studios, 4 tracks, whatever the case may be. We made our bootlegs on the 4 tracks, and then we started making our original records. We would practice them in the demo studio, and by the time we got to audio achievements, we had everything down pat. So it just made it was a whole different process.
Well, I was going to say, it's another lost art of music making is the pre-production.
Right.
Because now you just hit record and go.
Right.
And this is a different era.
I was working on a song, man, and I broke out a pad and started writing. Guy, what you doing? I write down my lyrics. He said, man, grab your phone and do what with it? I felt so old, it was ridiculous. I'm going to write me some lyrics down and we're trying to, everybody do their lyrics on their phone. And I'm like, oh, they do now. So, whole different thing.
And another thing that I thought was interesting about your book, and then just knowing it from starting to study the music back in the day, was I first knew Schoolie D starting Schoolie D Records in like 83, 84 he came out, and then PSK blew up in 85. And you guys soon thereafter were also doing, in 84-ish, 85-ish, had your own labels too. And I think that the West Coast, Los Angeles in particular, doesn't get a lot of recognition for the independent spirit and grind. So, with you, with Unknown, with the different people that had the labels, back then, what was the mindset of doing it on your own instead of exclusively shopping a deal?
Well, we were already businessmen. I mean, on a nightclub at 22, I had my own mobile DJ system business at 19. 22, I got to nightclub, so I was used to spending my own money and investing in myself.
Okay.
And when I got to the record business, I knocked on everybody's door. But because we came up around in the late 80s, in the early 80s, disco is just dying. And everybody was looking at rap as being like disco. This is a fad, it ain't gonna pass, it's just passing through. And I figured, well, heck, I'm gonna ride it while it's passing through, okay? I'm gonna hit your ride till it die, okay?
Right.
And that was the attitude. And that after the success of records like Sugar Hill Gang and Curtis Blow, it was like, man, let's do something. You know, because when the wave comes to California, I want to have a surfboard ready to ride. Okay, and that was my philosophy. And like I said, we knocked on the Motown doors, went up and down Sunset, went to Santa Monica, Beverly Hills. Everybody that had a record had a label, we knocked on their doors, and wasn't nobody checking for us. But because Wrecking Crew was already in the underground bootleg business, we knew how to make records. We knew how to, you know, the plating and the jackets and the whole 9 yards. We knew how to make records. So we just shifted our mindset to start doing something legit. Unknown and I were both doing that together. And he had his own underground label. I forgot what it was called. Mine was, he was Scratch Party. Mine was Xerox.
You're talking about before Techno Hop.
Before Techno Hop. Yeah.
Right.
So we both were underground bootleggers. And I don't call myself a bootlegger. We were underground mixers, okay? And but
creators.
Thank you. Underground creators. And while doing that, we learned the basic business, how to create, manufacture, and distribute records. And because my last job was at a record distributor selling records over the phone, I had a list of all the stores in LA, Nevada, and it became a situation where, okay, we got this part, we know how to make them, we know how to sell them.
Right.
Let's try it. And we started doing this, man. It was like, and there was no competition on the West Coast. You know, no matter what you made, if it rhymed and had a beat to it, you could sell it. And that's how we got started.
Yeah, and I think it's impressive and important because of what later happened in West Coast rap with the explosion, mainly, of course, with Eazy-E and then N.W.A. Another part of your book that I thought was interesting on the business side was when you talked about Brian Turner and Priority Records calling you to buy the C.I.A. masters for Cube. So what was that day like when you got that call? So for everybody, in the book, you guys should buy it, of course, not without Lonzo, but he's talking about...
Audio book too, CD baby.
Yes.
Just so you know.
But he's talking about C.I.A. was a group Cube was in before N.W.A., or one of the groups, I should say. But then Priority Records was going to put out Ice Cube's material, so they called Lonzo to buy the C.I.A. masters.
Right. I knew Brian. I'd done a lot of compilation albums with Brian before, and we had some other business prior to that. So me and Brian had a working relationship, and when he called, you know, hey man, I want to Cube want those C.I.A. records up the streets. All right, make me an offer. He said, I give you 10 grand. I give you the masters. It ain't a big deal. It hadn't sold a lot anyway. You know, we were back on Macola. We didn't have a lot of distribution, and it was like 10 racks. I'm out of here. Okay, and it wasn't until the internet came back around, the records resurfaced. I didn't do it though. Okay,
let it be known.
Yeah, let it be known. I didn't do it.
Now, with Priority, one of the things in your book I thought was interesting, as somebody that read a lot and studied it and got to know a lot of the players in the game, did you only interact with Brian, or were you with Mark Cerami some too?
Don't know Mark Cerami. I knew Brian.
Okay.
I got stories with Brian.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. And then as you saw and were doing the compilations, what do you think you took or learned from, even at a distance, working with Priority that you were able to apply to what you were doing?
Well, one, it was big money because back in the day, Brian was paying good money to do a licensing deal. It was like five grand for a single, and his checks came every quarter consistently and nice and large, and he set the groundwork. He gave me a lot of inspiration. When they picked up the N.W.A. and the Posse project, that went to another level. Then he picked up I think he picked up Egypt first. Egypt was on Priority for a minute, and then he picked up the N.W.A. project, and he became like a possible go-to.
Right.
As another option for Macola, because he was right down the street from Macola. He was on Sunset. Macola was on Santa Monica, and they still weren't far from each other. So it was always an option, and we made a lot of money together. So it was something to do. But I like my independence. That was just Lonzo. Lonzo liked his independence because I'd have to get paid once a month every quarter. I got paid every time I sold a record. So that's hard to beat.
Right. And I think to your point, before we move, I think people also forget that Eazy Does It really came out before Straight Outta Compton and was a huge record before Straight Outta Compton took off in '89 with Fuck the Police and all the controversy, but Eazy Does It was a big record and doing very well before Straight Outta Compton, and he was the star.
Right.
And that,
although he never wanted to be the star.
but I think people get it twisted. So from not wanting to be the star, why do you say that?
Well, see, you have to understand Eazy, man. I know Eazy. I know Eazy like I'm talking to you right now. We would clown each other. I watched him rise. Eazy watched me rise as an independent artist, label owner. Then he took what I did and he magnified it on the Gangster tip. Okay,
Right.
so we talked a lot back in the day. There was nobody for him to talk to besides Lonzo. And we sit there and talk. I said, Eazy, how long are you gonna sell this Gangster image? He said, as long as they buy it. Okay, but and people forget when you see straight out of Compton. If you know Eazy like I know him, he was a quiet dude. He was a real laid back dude. He's very quiet. He always, he playful, but he was quiet. He's always clowning. And he was not a rough, hardcore dude, but he started to morph into that character as things started to develop for him, and it started making money for him.
Right.
Okay, he would be Eric. You see him at the house with his kid, Lil E. They bring him by the house the whole 9 yards. You saw him with his kids. He would be Eric and Daddy. He never let his character spill into his personal life.
Yeah.
And that was something that he come to my house. When Yella was doing the porn, just to watch the girl, we all did, okay? Sit back there, watch the girls kick it, and sometimes even when Yella wasn't there, I'm gonna come out and kick it. I'm away from my bodyguards over here. I was supposed to be over here last night. I go back in the back, man, because where I live at, it's a real small, secluded street, and we didn't have a lot of groupies and stuff, so he can come to my house and feel comfortable. So that was something that we shared. But again. We cuss each other out all the time. You use a little short, Jerry curl. Who got a Jerry curl?
Right.
So it was a unique relationship.
Another thing that's interesting too is you and Eazy maintained a relationship. So what do you think you learned from him?
As a person or just overall?
I would say both.
Eazy never forgot where he came from.
Okay.
Eazy, even after Ruthless was doing his thing, I was on the payroll, but I was a contractor to Ruthless Records. If they had issues in Compton or something going on in Compton, I would always be the one to handle it, as a liaison for Jerry or Eazy, whatever the case may be. And I got a few Ruthless checks, and I ain't mad at them.
Right. Okay. And then as Ruthless was taking off, and how did you find yourself able to transition to sustain yourself in the music industry?
I've always owned a recording studio, and but my second career is nightclub management. So I was able to just go back into the nightclub business, and the club I started off with, Eve After Dark. I ran that off and on for 40 years. I just retired from that spot last year, and I've owned 6 nightclubs since then. So I kind of stayed in the business, but on another page. But it always allowed me opportunities to go back and forth and stay busy, active in the record business. But I was always in entertainment, put it that way, and that's been my fallback. Everybody gotta have a plan B. So I bought and ran nightclubs, and so I just got tired of it, and so now I do multimedia now, like you.
And with the nightclubs, there obviously Eve After Dark in particular is very famous and renowned. So in LA in particular, the clubs go in and out of business so much, and they change names, they change locations, they do all this other stuff. So with that, you have that just happening in general. Then you have like the streets, you got violence, you got popularity, different things changing all the time. How do you think you were able to keep that name and that club sustainable for so long?
Well, I had a lot of good street relationships, man. I'm from the neighborhood, first of all. I grew up in the neighborhood at Eve After Dark. The old man who owned the club, we all lived in the same block. So we had a relationship throughout the whole neighborhood. And then I had gang and non-gang, not affiliates, but friends, who made sure nobody messed with us,
That helps.
It always helps to know somebody that will go out and whoop ass for you.
Right.
So I had a couple of buddies that just, hey man, they vowed from the day one, man, don't worry about this right here. We got this right here. We got you, got this right here. Okay. We appreciate what you're doing for the community. And at that time, man, it was the streets were a lot different. There was a lot more sense of loyalty when it came to people that was trying to do something. And even as a kid, and I was growing up, the gangbangers in my neighborhood wouldn't let me be involved in certain things. They knew I wasn't about that. They would, man, go ahead, this ain't for you. And it's the same thing here, man. I see what you're doing. We got the streets covered. You take care of the inside. Okay, and it worked for us. It was a good, excellent team effort.
And why do you think things changed so much?
A lot of the youngsters that come about don't know the history of what we've done, and everybody's trying to make a reputation for themselves, not knowing that you're talking to somebody who has already put the work in to allow you to be where you are, and the disrespect comes in, and you just don't want to. No, at my age, I ain't trying to go there. I ain't not trying to catch no case. Right. So it's just, hey man, I don't bother this no more. It's cool.
And in addition, as the clubs were going and as things were transitioning, one of the things I thought that was amazing, and I'd only read about it, and to get more detail from it in the book, was the West Coast distribution network that you guys had established. So I wanted you to explain what it was and who was involved.
Well, Macola came, at one point in time, Macola took on some new partners that were, I call them the Sopranos of the record industry, okay? And things changed dramatically around Macola, and everybody started leaving. I left first. Okay. I came back. I was the first one to leave, first one to come back. When I came back, things had changed dramatically, and they pretty much put him out of business. And we still had the name, we still had the label. So I created this as something. I got to blow my horn, toot 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 toot. I came up with the idea of us forming our own record distributing company, West Coast Record Distributors. So I got with Rudy from the LA Dream Team, Egyptian Lover, my boy Unknown, and me and Atron, we drove to Palm Springs to the NARM, and met with all the distributors, and they all said they would buy from us.
Okay.
Then we came back, met with Steve Sheldon at Rainbow Records. He said he would press our records. He gave us all a $25,000 line of credit apiece, without a Dunn Street, without a TRW, just on our label alone.
Okay.
And then we cut a deal with another company in Burbank called California Record Distributors, George Hocutt, and he agreed to be our anchor distributor for California to make sure that Steve got paid. So we put together this unique deal. Didn't need a lot of money.
Right.
Didn't need a lot of money. And we formed West Coast Record Distributors, and through West Coast Record Distributors, we distributed the Compton compilation, Rodney O and Joe Cooley's first record, me and Joe. We broke JJ Fast, Supersonic, King T's first record, along with a few more acts that I can't think of right now, but we did a lot in that 18-month period till we all went crazy and decided we had to go our own separate ways. We made $1 million, but we grossed over $1 million the first year.
So why didn't it work?
Egos. You got young cats. All of us were superstars in our own minds, and you couldn't tell us that we needed to sit down and put our egos at the front door and come get this money. And what we had done was so unprecedented. Nobody could tell us that we were stupid. Okay, that we had a gold mine. That nobody could tell us we had a gold mine and just keep digging this gold as opposed to trying to see who got the biggest pile. And that was something that I regret, because what we did then, we set the precedent for everybody else.
Right.
Everybody else started doing the same thing, but they had one problem that we didn't have. We already had our distributing company was made by hit makers. We all had hits. Turn Off Lights was just got dropped. Egypt was a hit maker. Unknown, LA Dream Team. We all hit makers.
Right.
So
you weren't starting from scratch.
We weren't starting from scratch. We wasn't trying to break nobody. We was already broken acts. Broke acts. So all we had to do was fill the pipeline. But because sometimes record sales fluctuate, and egos do too.
All right.
So on a bad day, somebody might get cussed out, and I didn't want to hear it. Okay, so you might get cussed out by me straight out of Compton. You might have one of them Lonzo moments. So it is what it is. So we had to we decided to go our separate ways, and again, that was probably one of the biggest mistakes we ever made, because somebody would have bought us for quite a bit of money if we did just set our asses down long enough.
Well, you live and you learn, and
Yes, sir.
now you've expanded doing multimedia. So
Yes,
bring
man.
everybody
Yes, sir.
else up to speed. What's going on?
I have a hot YouTube channel, N.W.A. Stories with Lonzo on YouTube. You can find me on social media, Real Lonzo N.W.A. You can contact me, Real Lonzo N.W.A. at Gmail. I'm on Twitter, all that, Real Lonzo N.W.A. But check out my YouTube channel. Check out my audio book. Now, if you like reading, that's fine. It's on Amazon. But if you want to have something to ride to, not only am I doing the audio book, but it's also set to music, all original tracks, so you can get your ride on, get your education on, and your groove on all at the same time. Audio book is on CD Baby. Again, it's not without Lonzo on CD Baby.
Yeah, and make sure to buy it and support it, because I did. And the great thing about it is, no matter what your level of knowledge is about this stuff, you're going to learn some new things. And that was what was great to me about buying the book and reading N.W.A, because, you know, it's a lot of information, and it's also puts a lot of things into context and how you break down a lot of your history, but then everything that you were affiliated with. And that's why hopefully Lonzo will come back, because we got to have to do another section of this interview, man.
You got it.
Because it's a lot more to talk about, but we appreciate you coming through today,
I appreciate it.
And make sure you pick up N.W.A, Not Without Lonzo. He's in the building. I'm Soren Baker, Unique Access.
Peace.
Be sure to check out the History of Gangster Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangster Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the D.O.C, and dozens of others. The History of Gangster Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
At 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
There will be penalties and casualties for just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
With Fab 5 on Your MTV Raps with N.W.A.
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national gangbang rappers.
The History of Gangster Rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
It's always gonna be shit happening in the streets. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The History of Gangster Rap in stores now.